Hello everyone, this is Jake from CINECALIBER. In today's video, I will be reviewing the 5th episode of the new season of The Boys, which is season 4. Now this is my 3rd review on this TV show, and there will be links for those other reviews in the description of this video for anyone who wants to check those out if you haven't seen those. This is also one of my most anticipated TV shows of the 2024 year. If you guys want to see a detailed analysis of those shows, please check the description as well for a link for that video as well. And guys, I'm going to get right into it here. I'm going to do a bit of a recap for episode 4 of some of the things that are relevant in this new episode. So, in episode 4, where we last had seen Homelander, he had reached a breaking point in the last episode. And he, after this, has fully started to embrace his inner wrath, so to speak. His character, I feel like, has come to the realization that he doesn't really need humans to be loved anymore, which has always been a thing for him. Like, everyone was always holding over his head, like, hey, you need humans as much as humans need you. But as time goes on, that's starting to become less and less of a factor for him, and which is ultimately going to make him more dangerous. Another big thing that happened in the last episode, Starlight continues to be publicly slandered, and she's going through this like identity crisis, and it got really to a tipping point because now she's basically public enemy number one after lashing out at Firecracker on TV. So now, no one wants anything to do with her publicly. So it was a big blow for her. Another big arc from last episode was A-Train. He's continuing to be a mole for the boys, as he kind of, on this last episode, he helped Huey get Compound V. And he was caught by Ashley, who used to be the one running things, but was replaced by Sister Sage. And she's kind of just become insignificant to Vought. But now they have like their own weird personal vendetta against them, but they also don't like each other, so they're like using it against each other or for each other. It's a weird scenario there. Really, too, this episode ties directly into Gen V, which was a spin-off of The Boys from in a show from last year. So there's some events from there that actually that are touched upon in this episode. For one, there's 2 notable appearances in this episode from that show, and that's Sam. He was kind of a student who went off the deep end after he was being basically tortured and experimented on for so long. And he has like the incredible super strength, but like I said, a bit bipolar. And then we also there's an appearance of Kate, who is a telepath and can basically control people's minds. She was the girlfriend for the one guy. I can't remember him at the top of my head, but and she seemed good at first, but then she kind of just fell into this role, and now she became bad. So they are, those 2 are basically a factor in this episode. And also, there was a virus in that show that was like one of the main plot points. The university that they were at, they were concocting a virus, and basically Newman had actually obtained this virus towards the end of that show, and that kind of plays a part in the new episode here. And last but not least, we just have Huey. He's been dealing with his father having a stroke, and then also dealing with the return of his long-lost mother, who left him when he was a very young age. And it kind of just ended with basically Huey's dad gets injected with Compound V, causing him to wake up. So with all that said, we're going to go right into the episode 4 review here, and we're going to go over what was a hit, the good in this episode. So this episode moves the plot forward tremendously. It has some really deep character exploration, and the plot progression is just amazing. It's the most that the plot has moved along, I feel, so far in this show. So first I want to talk about Billy and his character in this episode. So in this one, he kind of reveals to the boys that there's a virus and that you can wipe out the soups with that. And so, but then the crew is like, well, why did you keep this from us? They're still questionable because he's done so many bad things, There's a scene, though, when they do start investigating where it shows like a living organism inside of like a rabbit. And to me, only Billy was the only one that saw this. And to me, I feel like that's kind of just like, foreshadowing to what his situation is. So in the last episode, he got into a fight with a Soup named Ezekiel, and he kind of blacked out, and then he woke up, and then Ezekiel was basically dead. I feel like there is some kind of living organism inside of Billy, and showing this scene and how it portrays only to him, I feel like it's a really deep matter of foreshadowing and kind of teasing us for what is to come for his character. Then we also, I haven't really talked about him yet. There's a new character, Joe Kessler. He's played by the brilliant Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And he's basically on the same level as Billy as far as being unorthodox to get what he wants. Basically, those two are kind of conspiring in the beginning of this episode. Billy's kind of gotten soft from his cancer. Joe is still unorthodox, but I feel like towards when you get to the end of this episode, you can see that they're kind of just, going rogue to get the job done of killing the Soups. And we're kind of getting the old Billy back, which, is both a good thing and a bad thing. I like the old Billy just because he's just one of those I don't give a crap characters, but he also does hurt the ones he loves being that way. So we're going to have to see what's going to happen with that. Other characters that I thought were a big highlight was Starlight and Frenchie. They both continue to have their own internal struggles. Again, Starlight's recent debacle seemed to make an impact on her powers. She can't seem to use them, especially when they needed her to in this episode. So that's a huge factor. And then also Frenchie, he continues to be just plagued with guilt over his past life, which actually, slight spoilers, that leads to him turning himself into the authorities. So where they go from there, we'll have to see. But there's some deep characterizations from there. We also get the return of Giancarlo Esposito's character, who plays former Vought CEO Stan Edgar. The boys basically use him to uncover the virus in this episode, and then that ultimately makes them cross paths with Victoria Newman. And she seems to have lost a handle on the virus at this point, and she's basically trying to get the virus back and figure out what happened at the place that she was experimenting on, which was at a farmhouse. And that kind of leads into the farmhouse sequence. And then really Victoria and Stan, I thought the chemistry between those two actors were pretty impeccable. And the episode leaves on a good note for them too. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, the farmhouse sequence, let me tell you guys, some of the craziest writings I've seen yet. So basically the boys and Newman are basically investigating this farmhouse to try and find any remnant of the virus. And they come across these Gen V farm animals, and you're talking like killer chickens and sheep, and the whole sequence was just so grotesque, but all absolutely hysterical. Just seeing these animals just kind of going crazy trying to kill them. It was just the typical boys violence and suspense I've been used to over the last few years. I really enjoyed the sequence for the most part. It definitely interesting. And then really the last thing was really Huey's story arc in this episode. So he has to deal with the repercussions of his dad getting injected with Gen V. And I don't want to spoil too much with that, but there's some real good emotional moments during that arc between him, his dad, and his mom. And it really brought me to tears almost. They do a really good job just kind of going to that character depth and making us really feel for these characters. I really enjoyed that. On the Vought side of things, we're going to circle back to Homelander here. So again, he's reached a breaking point last episode, starting not to care about the public's opinion of him, and then he uses that to kind of grow his relationship with Ryan. And you'll see in the episode, they both humiliate this producer for being basically a douchebag. And Star's performance is so good. It shows he portrays that he generally cares about Ryan, but really he is just manipulating him to just make him be, by his side. But it's done so well. Anthony Starr continues to do a tremendous job with the character. Then we show a little bit of A-Train. Like I said, so this one, he's trying to get Sister Sage off his back because they're still trying to find the leak that leaked the evidence of the riot to Starlight. So this leads to an interesting partnership between him and Ashley. And it basically, they end up covering their asses basically by framing someone else, but that leads to this crazy, like, bloody ending where all the Supes kind of embrace their wrathful god personas, thanks again to Homelander's direction, to basically take it out on this guy. So some good, interesting stuff there. I enjoyed that a lot. We're gonna go into now what was a miss, the bad. There's not a whole lot for this show. The pacing's been a bit sluggish this episode, and despite all the plot progression and the character progression, it feels like there's just certain arcs that are just not hitting for me. They just don't feel very significant in the large scheme of things. Like Frenchie and Huey's arcs, again, I am enjoying the emotional complexity that we get to see from these characters, but I just don't see how this ties into anything. At least Starlight's, Billy's, they have been pretty significant. Like, they tie into the narrative, but these don't. It feels like the writing just doesn't know what to do with these characters, and it's kind of a shame because they're Frenchie and Huey to me are some of the best. So maybe, hopefully, they kind of change that, but we're already more than halfway through now, guys. So, and just other characters too. The Deep and Nor, they've been lackluster this season. I mean, the Deep's always been lackluster. He's always just kind of stuck up in the publicity. But I think I did enjoy the political satire and revolving around him. Like, so it kind of like displays that a bit, but they really need to step it up with those characters. They're just so insignificant. And it's a shame. Like, it feels like Sister Sage and even Firecracker to an extent are better characters than they are, and they just debuted this year. So I don't know. That's a little off to me. And also, what's the deal with MM? As much as I like MM, I mean, he's also not been much of a factor here. We really haven't seen much of his family life. They had one scene with him and his daughter and his wife, and I get he's struggling to be the leader, but they don't really portray that very well. Like, he's just kind of there, and that's it. And I hope they kind of step it up with him, because he's another great character. Like I said, the writing for some of these has been a bit sluggish. Not the best. But we're gonna that's it. That's always a miss. We're gonna go into the conclusion here, just to wrap it all up. So, guys, this was a bit of an average episode compared to the episode we got in episode 4. However, despite its sluggish pacing and at times questionable character arcs, the show continues to explore the political satire of a world with superheroes in a relatable way to today's world. And the grotesque violence meshed with some true comedic moments that are driven by some truly outstanding performances make this a great show so far. And its plot progression in this episode has left the audience wanting more. So I have to give this a solid rating of a 4 out of 5. I liked it that much. So yeah, guys, we got about 3 more episodes left. I will be talking about those as they come out. And that is it. This is Jake from CINECALIBER.